Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Exponent Sports Week. I'm Assistant Sports Editor Joann Norell.
And I'm Executive Reporter Joe Parello.
So Joe, obviously it was a devastating loss in Sweet 16. Boilermakers lost to Duke. What went wrong in that game?
Yeah, Joanne, as you said, a disappointing end to the season for the Boilermakers, falling in the Sweet 16 for the second consecutive year. And for the second consecutive year, pretty much just overmatched on the boards. Didn't have enough size to battle with one of those elite programs in the NCAA, if you will. Last year Connecticut, this year Duke. You really feel for this team. They lost Robbie Hummel. Just could not rebound with a team that featured a 7-footer and two guys that were hovering around 7 foot, 6'10" or whatever. But the whole first half played very well, forced a bunch of turnovers. In the end, they just ran out of gas. And you got to give credit where credit's due. Duke made shots down the stretch, and Purdue didn't. Going forward, you got to feel good about the team if everybody comes back. But again, for Purdue fans, another disappointing end to the season.
So Joe, spring football kicked off this week. What have you seen so far?
That's right, Joanne. The Boilermaker football team just started spring practices, and it's always a fun time of year, but it's always a time of year full of a bunch of question marks, and Purdue certainly has a bunch of them this year as they look to improve on last year's 5-7 record, get back to a bowl game for the first time in 3 years. The biggest question is going to be obviously quarterback. You got the transfer Robert Marve coming in from Miami, pretty highly touted. You've got the redshirt freshman Rob Henry and the sophomore Caleb Turbush, who played a little in a pinch last year. Going to be a tough battle. A lot of people think Marv's going to take that. He appears to have the lead so far. You look at the secondary, they lose all 4 starters, and the only guy returning with any experience that played a little last year was Albert Evans, but he's out with an ankle injury, so they're going to have to totally rebuild that. Got a few guys that played a little last year, and Josh Johnson and Chris Quinn. Still a little iffy in the secondary. Coach Hope doesn't seem very optimistic about that yet. Seems pretty optimistic about his weapons on offense. But kind of a downer, been a lot of injuries. Keith Smith, the All-Big Ten receiver, missing spring with a wrist injury. And you got Ryan Kerrigan, who luckily has bounced back from that broken foot he suffered at IU last year. I spoke to Ryan. He said he's back to 100%. It's just going to be a mental thing, and that's going to be huge because him and Gerald Gooden could be the best defensive end duo in the Big Ten, if not the country, as Ryan Kerrigan looks to become a unanimous selection unanimous All-American. He'd be Purdue's first unanimous selection All-American since Drew Brees way back in 2000. All right, so Joanne, the men's swimming and diving team traveled to the campus of Ohio State for the national championships. How'd they do there?
Yeah, Joe, the swimmers and divers traveled to OSU this weekend for the NCAA championships. Sophomore David Budai is absolutely on fire. He's won the 1 and the 3-meter springboards, and he's still got one more to go, and that's his best event, which is the platform. Also, we have senior swimmer Sam Wilcher. He's advancing tonight. He broke his own school record in the 200 butterfly, and he looks to score. And the Boilers are now sitting in 13th place heading into the final events.
All right, Joanne, the Purdue baseball team's coming off a tough loss to Illinois State. What did they do to bounce back from that?
This week, the Boilers on the baseball field smashed IPFW in Chicago State. They outscored Chicago State 35-2 over the weekend. Now they're sitting at over 500 for the first time this season.
All right, well, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Exponent Sports Week. Join us again next week.